I've always thought that as a director, Rob Zombie was at his best when he was directing his own creations. I liked House of a Thousand Corpses, I absolutely loved Devil's Rejects, but then he went off and did Halloween 1 and 2, and while he did have noble intentions with those, you just can't compete with the originals. I was glad that after that, instead of doing the remake of The Blob, that he made The Lords of Salem. Unfortunately, The Lords of Salem was pretty terrible. I thought it looked the part, I thought that his directing was on point, it's just that I thought that it was really slow and just a mess. And I like slow burn 70s style movies, but this one, it just didn't work. So I was excited that he was doing 31, which sounded a little bit more like an action horror movie. Unfortunately, 31, which was not as bad as The Lords of Salem, it was still pretty terrible. I know he made it for not a lot of money. Apparently, he crowdsourced it, and it was something like $1.5 million. But I've seen movies that cost under $1 million that not only looked better, but just were better. The movie takes place in, I believe it was 1976, and a group of carnival workers are driving along in an RV. They stop for gas, and they get abducted by this group of people that kidnap people every Halloween. Essentially, this is Rob Zombie's The Running Man. You've got your contestants, the carnival workers, and then you got the stalkers, which are your stock Rob Zombie bad guys. They have to survive 12 hours, and if they do, they'll be set free. Of course, no one's ever survived 12 hours before. What I liked about it, the opening monologue from Richard Brake, who was Scott Ridley in Death Machine, I thought he was really good. His opening speech that he gave effectively did a good job of setting things up. So I was initially kind of excited because I thought it was a good way to set the tone for the film. Some of the sets were really cool. Zombie does have a really good eye for setting up shots and making things look attractive. He's got a great eye. Whoever he's working with as his cinematographer, he did set up some great shots, and I thought that it looked good. I think that overall his movies all have a very good looking aesthetic to them. They're never unattractive. Even when it's something really dingy and dismal, he has a way of setting things up to make them look good. Once again, his soundtrack was really good. He picked a lot of classic 70s tunes that fit the movie very well. The bad stuff, it's a much longer list. While they did have a good soundtrack, there were times when the movie turned into a music video. The entire opening was one song. Okay, fine. Then later in the film, there was an entire song that ran. Then later in the film again, it got really old. The villains that the carnival workers had to fight didn't seem that menacing or really all that unique or original. Just kind of stupid, really. There was a little person, Adolf Hitler. There were two clowns with chainsaws. There was a tall German guy with a baseball bat with nails and a little pixie girl that ran around with him. And then angry guy with skull paint and switchblades. They all had stupid names, too. It was Sick Head, Psycho Head, Schizo Head, Sex Head, Death Head, and Doom Head. None of them seemed to be particularly good at their jobs. They were doing stupid things, they were overly excited, and they usually died because of their own stupidity, which struck me as odd because apparently this whole thing has been going on for a long time, and no one had been able to stop them before. No one had made it through all these people. And the thing was, once they killed Sex Head and Death Head, they had to call in Doom Head because they had run out of villains. However, the worst thing is that for whatever reason, Zombie decided to shoot this whole thing handheld. As he put it, he shot it guerrilla style. And that meant that the camera was constantly moving. So whenever there was dialogue, it was just camera moving all over the place. And then whenever there was action, camera right up on the action, shaking around, no idea what the hell happened until the end. So whenever there was a fight between the carnival workers and the villains, you had no idea what was happening until the end resolution when they showed you who lived and who died. And I am not exaggerating. I probably would have tolerated the movie a lot more if they didn't completely destroy the action sequences, because the shaky cam for the majority of the film was annoying, but I could get over it. But when it got to the action scenes, it was incomprehensible, and it took me out of the movie every single time. I know the movie had a hard time getting an R rating, so he had to cut a lot of it out to get it down from NC-17. I am curious to watch an unrated cut, because he said that when it hits home video, he is going to release an unrated cut, but I'm not entirely sure what had to be cut, because watching the film, I didn't feel like it was particularly gory. There were a couple things that were a little bloody, but nothing that made me feel like there was a more gruesome cut. The stuff that I saw in Green Room was much more violent, and that got an R rating. And like I said, with the shaky cam, you couldn't tell what the hell was happening half the time anyway. 31 was a step up from Lords of Salem, but unfortunately it was still not a good movie. It's just that it wasn't as bad as Lords of Salem. I don't know if this was Zombie's experimental film, if because it was so low budget he decided to shoot it the way that it did, but it did not work, and I hope that for future movies he does not do this again.